he was already dead by most reasonable definitions, stabbed through the throat on the ground of the Star Religious group, bleeding out, his technique neutralized for an entire fight by a man who had already killed him once. Satoru Gojo was losing, and in that moment, with no teacher, no instruction, no precedent to follow, he figured out reverse curse technique in real time, and came back to finish the fight as something the man immediately recognized was not the same sorcerer anymore. That is where special grade actually starts, not in a classification, not in a number, in moments where the system's categories stop being adequate. 6 people hold this designation. Every single one of them arrived there by breaking something about how the Jujutsu world was supposed to work. 5 of them are the most powerful sorcerers alive in the modern Jujutsu world. The 6th is the reason that sentence is still an understatement. Satoru Gojo, the honored one. What he became after that moment is well documented. Limitless gives him near absolute control over space at the atomic level. Its neutral state, the infinity, means every incoming attack approaches him through an infinite series of divisions that always leaves a gap before contact. This is the reason that in every fight, nobody who aimed at him actually reached him. You could watch someone throw a strike directly at his face and understand, frame by frame, why it would never land. The 6 eyes process all of it without the cognitive drain that would collapse any other sorcerer, sorting incoming threats by energy intensity, mass, speed, shape, running constantly in the background since his 3rd year of high school. And the reverse curse technique keeps his brain refreshed throughout, which means he never runs dry on any of it. Another sorcerer doing half of this would be done before the fight even started. In his final battle, Gojo explained his domain 5 times. 5. Most sorcerers can manage once in a fight. Gojo did it 5 times against an opponent who was adapting to him in real time, and he did it while simultaneously healing the physical damage that each expansion was doing to his brain. He could also trigger it for 0.2 seconds, a fractional deployment, just enough to clip someone with a fragment of its effect. A level of precision with domain expansion nobody else demonstrated before or after. His domain, Unlimited Void, does not simply overwhelm its targets. It pulls them into every stimulus and piece of information that exists simultaneously, which removes their ability to choose to do anything at all. And the purpose of getting caught inside it is not to be beaten, it's to be made incapable of fighting back. Hollow Technique, Purple. The collision of his negative and positive limitless forms was fired from 4 kilometers away in the same battle, a distance that would render any other sorcerer's attack harmless before it arrived. And throughout all of it, his pure physical output matched or exceeded Sukuna in direct hand-to-hand, the same Sukuna who had just kept Yuji and Maki occupied at the same time. The only thing that could stop Gojo was a world that had to change its own laws just to kill him. Nobody in the modern era came close. But Gojo named 3 students who would eventually surpass him. The first one on that list was already doing it. Yuta Okkotsu. The reason Gojo enrolled Yuta Okkotsu at Jujutsu High instead of letting the higher-ups execute him is actually straightforward. Gojo looked at a 16-year-old with no training, no knowledge of Jujutsu, and a special grade vengeful spirit overprotecting him, and recognizing the raw material was too valuable to waste on an execution. The institution had already decided otherwise, and that matters, because Copy, his actual technique, is the reason Gojo was right, and the institution's model has no category for someone whose power set grows with every opponent he survives. The curse haunting Yuta, Rika Orimoto, had been classified immediately as one of the most powerful curse spirits to ever exist. Yuta had accidentally cursed her death when they were children by subconsciously refusing to accept it, and the love behind that curse gave her power he had not yet figured out how to access. She tore apart a large cursed spirit with little effort the first time she fully manifested. At her absolute limit, unleashed when Yuta pledged his own life in exchange, she overpowered Geto's maximum technique, a blast of over 4,000 combined cursed spirits. Gojo saw the potential in all of that, and enrolled Yuta rather than letting it disappear. And Gojo was right, although the reasons he was right turned out to have less to do with Rika than anyone expected. The obvious read on Yuta is that his power is borrowed. That read stops being useful around the time he's deploying Sukuna's own technique back at him inside a domain fight. Copy lets him replicate any curse technique he encounters. Inside his domain, each katana activates a stored copy as a one-time use. Outside it, he has 5 minutes through the connection his ring provides to Rika. 1 sentence of mechanics. The part that matters is what the arsenal looked like by the time he needed it the most. The Rika present in the main series is a Shikigami vessel. The original soul already passed on. What remained was a capacity, which meant Copy was still loading. And as his arsenal grew, the pattern became clear. Yuta got more unpredictable with every fight, not less, because each new opponent added a tool his next opponent had never prepared for. By the time of his fight against Sukuna, he had copied Urosky Manipulation, the Angel's Technique Extinguishment, Curse Speech, and Sukuna's own Cleave, and he rotated through all of them inside a single domain fight. Sukuna noted that each new technique he had never encountered created a brief opening he could not close fast enough. His positive energy output can be applied externally to heal others, something even Gojo cannot do. And when Gojo died, Yuta transplanted himself into Gojo's body, using a copied version of Kenjaku's brain transplant technique, and deployed Limitless as well as Unlimited Void against Sukuna, knowing he had 5 minutes before the connection failed. Gojo told people more than once that Yuta had the potential to surpass him. His raw reserves actually exceed Gojo's, and at the time of his fight with Sukuna, he was still growing. Gojo's other 2 named students did not arrive at special grade through inherited power or a copied arsenal though. The second one started with something neither Gojo nor Yuta ever had to deal with, the most dangerous soul in history living inside the same body, telling him no every single day. Yuji Itadori, the vessel. Gojo had Limitless, Yuta had Copy and Rika. Yuji had none of that, he just showed up. What makes Yuji unusual is not that he became Sukuna's vessel, it's what happened when Sukuna tried to take over. Sukuna could not simply erase him. The series makes it clear that Sukuna has gone without a viable vessel for 1,000 years, because anyone who ingested even a single finger typically died from the poison instantly. Yuji's body did not break down. His compatibility with Sukuna's cursed energy meant he could absorb finger after finger without his body failing the way a normal person would. And the institution needed exactly this, a body that could contain Sukuna for long enough to execute him, and could not have built it, predicted it, or manufactured it. It just arrived. That is its own comment on what the institution is actually capable of planning for. But Yuji pushed back. He contained Sukuna without losing a sense of self, kept Sukuna from taking control for most of the series, and developed in parallel with, rather in spite of, the most dangerous soul in history occupying the same body. Gojo identified this entire combination as something that appeared approximately once every 1,000 years and treated it accordingly. Before a single lesson, before a single domain, his body was already operating outside what human beings can do. He ran 50 meters in 3 seconds. He threw a shot put ball like a baseball. He was 15. He had never heard of Jujutsu. His combat style combines acrobatic striking with continuous repositioning, high kicks, unconventional punches, knee strikes, attacking from all angles that make blocking the full sequence nearly impossible. Yuji has precise control mid-strike. He's able to pause a punch just before impact and redirect the force entirely if the situation changes. Divergent Fist creates a second delayed cursed energy impact behind each strike by deliberately weaponizing the lag between his speed and his energy flow. He first developed it as a defect, and when Aoi Todo taught him to properly flow cursed energy at contact, Yuji kept Divergent Fist as a change of pace to catch opponents off guard rather than abandon it entirely. In the month before the final battle, he built himself from scratch on top of all of that. Reverse curse technique, blood manipulation from the Kama line, access through the death painting womb still inside him, simple domain, and a domain expansion, a recreation of his hometown, designed with a sure hit effect that attacks a soul boundary between Sukuna and Megami Fushiguro directly. He designed the whole thing for one fight. Black Flash amplifies strike power to 2.5 times normal by applying cursed energy within 0.000001 seconds of contact. 8 consecutive against Sukuna in the final battle, 8 in a row, shattering the previous record. His total Black Flash count across the series runs well past 20, a number that should not be possible from someone who learned that technique mid-series. He designed the whole thing for one fight, then he won it. Gojo's third named student was Megami Fushiguro, and his story does not get its own entry here, because by the time the final battle arrives, it is inseparable from Sukuna's, and that will be obvious when we talk about it. Yuji built everything he had from nothing. The next person on this list survived a process designed to erase her entirely, and then spent the rest of her career arguing it should have never existed. Yuki Tsukumo, the independent one. Before Yuki was a special grade sorcerer who ignored her assignments, she was a star plasma vessel. That means she was selected as a candidate to merge with Tengen, the immortal barrier sorcerer, whose continued existence requires periodically absorbing a compatible human to reset their evolution and prevent them from transcending beyond a human form entirely. Most star plasma vessels die in the process or cease to exist as individuals, but Yuki survived without merging. That experience gave her a very specific view of what the Jujutsu institution is actually willing to do to people in order to maintain itself. She has disagreed loudly with Tengen about it every time they have been in the same room. She can also hear the previous vessels within Tengen and refuses to tell Tengen about them because she feels the information is not something they deserve to have made easy for them. Her departure from the institution's assignment was not laziness. It was a principled rejection of a strategy she considered fundamentally wrong. Her view was that non-sorcerers generate cursed energy far more freely than sorcerers do, and as long as that imbalance persists, exercising individual curses accomplishes nothing lasting because the conditions that produce them remain unchanged. She spent years outside Japan pursuing that research while headquarters, unable to legally compel her to take missions, and unwilling to try anything stronger against a special grade, kept her on payroll. And that last part matters. The institution did not keep paying Yuki because they agreed with her. They kept paying her because the alternative, coercing a special grade sorcerer who had already survived what the institution could do to people, was not a realistic option. And that is what special grade actually means to the people managing them. Not an honor, anger, but an acknowledgement that someone is beyond the institution's reach. Yuki understood that, and she used it to her advantage. Her technique, Star Rage, grants virtual mass to herself and her Shikigami Garuda, converting every strike she lands into a hit that carries catastrophic physical force beyond what the movement alone should produce. Against Kenjaku, she broke through his guard entirely with a single punch, and controlled their close-range exchanges through most of the fight. She also fought back effectively while critically injured, using reverse curse technique to heal, while Choso held Kenjaku's attention, and recovered enough to nearly corner him. When the fight reached its conclusion, Yuki activated Star Rage to its maximum, and transformed herself into a black hole, a force with the potential to end the world, compressed using willpower alone. Kenjaku acknowledged that act before she died. The institution did not classify Yuki, it simply acknowledged there was nothing else to call her. And Geto had the same disagreement with the institution. The difference was that he didn't walk away from it. Suguru Geto, the worst curse user. Geto's path to becoming the worst curse user in history is one of the most clearly documented collapses in the series, because it did not happen suddenly. It happened across years of missions that were designed to test his ideology rather than his technique. Geto was a student who genuinely believed Jujutsu sorcerers existed to protect non-sorcerers. His technique, curse spirit manipulation, required him to absorb every curse he exercised by swallowing it as a small black orb, a process he described as tasting like swallowing a rag used to clean up vomit. He did this repeatedly, on mission after mission, for people who would never know what that cost him, and he did it while watching sorcerers die and watching non-sorcerers clap. The breaking point had multiple components: the death of his enthusiastic junior, the applause of the Star Religious group after Riko Amani was shot, and eventually a conversation with Yuki Sumuko, who outlined two ideological solutions to the curse problem, and accidentally gave him the idea for a third. He rescued two girls from a village, where they were being mistreated for their cursed abilities. He killed all 112 other residents. He left his Jujutsu high pin in the dirt, and what he built after that decision was a religious organization designed to collect curses at industrial scale. The facade of spiritual healing attracted people carrying curses. Geto absorbed everything they brought. Over a decade, he stockpiled more than 4,000 cursed spirits in preparation for his final move against Jujutsu High. He understood the institution well enough to know that a direct assault on a single location would be defended against. So the Night Parade of 100 demons split the Jujutsu High sorcerers across Kyoto and Shinjuku simultaneously, occupying their full response capacity while Geto moved on Yuta Okkotsu at the school itself. He calculated his own win percentage at less than 20% before accounting for Rika, then revised it significantly once he factored in stealing her from Yuta mid-fight. Maximum Uzumaki, his technique's maximum form, combines a massive number of stored curses into a single concentrated attack, whose destructive output grows proportionally with the number poured into it. Yuta survived it only by pledging his own life to remove Rika's limiters, and even then it barely worked. The technique itself was not Geto's primary weapon. His primary weapon was a decade of patient accumulation that put 4,000 curses behind it, and Geto died with that accumulation intact. And that is exactly why Kenjaku chose Geto specifically. Curse spirit manipulation, loaded with everything Geto spent his life collecting, was the most operationally powerful tool available. Kenjaku did not build that arsenal, he inherited it. The body belonged to Geto, but the catastrophes that followed belonged to both of them. And that is what happens when the institution loses someone it should have known how to keep. And that's 5 people who broke the institution's categories. The 6th is the one everything the institution could put together still fell short of. All of it, the arsenal, the war, the coordinated assault on everything the modern Jujutsu world could mobilize, was pointed at one target. The reason it required that much is the last person on this list. Ryumin Sukuna, the disgraced one. Kashimo, the most devastating combatant of the Edo period. A sorcerer who had spent 400 years without meeting an equal, encountered Sukuna and called it the dessert he had been waiting for his entire life. That is the calibration. Every time someone in JJK describes another character as extremely powerful, the framing eventually comes back to a comparison with Sukuna. Yuta has more raw cursed energy than Gojo, but Sukuna has double what Yuta carries. Gojo expanded his domain 5 times in their battle, but Sukuna was keeping pace and adapting in real time, partly because he was using Megami's soul to absorb the burden of unlimited void. Choso told Yuji to run the moment he sensed Yuta's presence, and Yuta was the person being sent after Sukuna. The other special grade sorcerers on this list are the most powerful people in the modern Jujutsu world. Sukuna is the one thing that makes that sentence feel like it's describing something smaller than it sounds. His innate technique, Shrine, fires invisible slashing attacks at range that sever targets in space itself, and generate flames that exceed Jogo's output, a cursed spirit whose entire identity was built around pyrokinetic destruction. To stand inside Shrine's range is to be cut by something you can't see coming, and can't track after it lands. His true form, 4 arms and 2 faces, gave him the ability to form hand signs and chant incantations simultaneously at a rate no single-bodied sorcerer can match. And after taking Megami Fushiguro's body, he gained the 10 Shadows technique, summoning 10 types of Shikigami through Shadow as a medium, including Maharaga, the one Shikigami the technique itself says has never been successfully tamed by any user. Sukuna used Maharaga's adaptation as a blueprint to extend his own technique, creating a slash that cut through space itself to kill Gojo. He then fought every remaining special grade sorcerer in a coordinated assault and needed to be weakened by all of them together before Yuji could land the blow that ended him. Urame, watching from the aftermath, said the sorcerers had only won because Sukuna was constrained straight into an incarnated form, and that statement wasn't generous, it was accurate. Special grade is the highest designation the system has, and Sukuna is the reason the system acknowledges there are things above it.